Hello and welcome to Meet the Experts, your show to discover the latest and the greatest in wellness, anti-aging, and medical aesthetic trends. I'm Dori Soukup, and today's expert is Mary Nielsen. Mary is truly an expert in her field. She is a nurse, an educator, an author, an executive director of Spectrum Advanced Aesthetics, founder of Cascade Aesthetic Alliance, and owner of Indie Aesthetics and founder of Fearless Beauties. She has been a busy lady. Today, we are going to tap into her expertise by discussing how to treat skin of color and transgender skin to ensure client satisfaction and safety. This episode is sponsored by InSPAration Management, which is an award-winning medical spa consulting firm. Welcome, Mary, and thank you for taking the time to be with us today. I know you're very busy.
Well, good morning. I'm very honored to be able to be on the program and kind of spread the word about transgender skin and treating skin of color.
Great. Well, let's go ahead and get started by sharing with everybody what made you choose a career in the aesthetics industry. I know you're a veteran. You've been doing it for many years. So let's start there by giving the audience a little bit more about your background, and then we'll go ahead and dive into the questions.
Well, originally, so I grew up in Minnesota, where I had a very small town, maybe 2,000 people. And my grandmother worked at the local clinic. She was one of the founders of the clinic that was there, and I loved going in and watching her work. And it was so small that she would greet the client, greet the patient coming in. Then she'd be escorting them back to see the doctor. She'd be running to do their x-ray. She'd be filling their prescription. I just knew that I wanted to be a nurse when I grew up. So when I graduated from high school, I did go to nursing school and worked in surgical urology in Duluth, Minnesota.
Wow.
But I am not a cold weather person at all. My heart is with warmer weather. So I moved to the Pacific Northwest, which I know it's not tropical here, but we're not shoveling a lot of snow, which I was doing in Minnesota. So I began to work here in the Pacific Northwest. Eventually, my career took me to working for a group of surgeons, and they were multi-specialties. So there was breast surgeons and colon and vascular all together. There were also 2 plastic surgeons in this group, and I started working for them. This is in the 1990s. Mm-hmm. So I started with nursing in the 1970s. In the 1990s, they asked me to research medical aesthetics and bringing lasers into the practice. Mm-hmm. And I started doing the research, and I felt like little angels were just singing in my, sitting on my shoulder, singing in my ears, just saying, "You want to do this." And I just felt in my heart like, oh, you've got to do this. So I did take a leave of absence. I got my aesthetics license, and then I began to work with them, worked with them for 14 years, building a practice, medical aesthetics to mm-hmm. 2 different locations. And then other circumstances happened, and I ended up deciding, I think I know enough, I'm going to go out on my own. Mm-hmm. So I had my own med spa for 10 years where the doctor worked for me. Mm-hmm. And then I fell in love, and that caused me to sell my med spa and move to the Portland, Oregon area, where I had been my own boss for so long. I knew I wouldn't do well going to become an employee for someone. Mm-hmm. And I also didn't think I had the energy to start something new, my own med spa. So for some reason, I thought it would be wouldn't take as much energy to start a little laser training center, mm-hmm. which actually then grew into a fully licensed aesthetic school.
Nice.
So that's kind of the story in a nutshell.
Yeah, well, you've done so much through your career. As a matter of fact, you cover so many different topics that it's hard to limit my questions today. But let's stick with what we want to help professionals who are watching this by discussing different skin types first that an esthetician or a medical professional may come across. Like, what made you want to focus today on treating skin of color and transgender skin? What do you see as a situation where we really need to address it?
Well, coming probably about 2.5 years ago, I knew the student population was changing. We were getting more and more students of color coming into the school. And we were also getting clients that come in for services that are supervised by instructors. We were getting a large, client population of color. And then Portland has a very large LGBTQ community, and a lot of transgender clients were coming in, and we just didn't have protocols. We didn't have the right equipment, and I really wanted to change that experience. So looking at what was available, there is just most of the large aesthetic education, corporate education just does not address treating skin of color, and talks about, it's a specialty, you should get special education. And it's more than just, people think, oh, it's just melanin and we need to go by the Fitzpatrick scale. Dr. Fitzpatrick, bless his heart, he did create something that has become the gold standard, but it was really never intended for making decisions about treating skin of color. It was a study done on middle-aged white men to determine their reactions to UV, to the sun. And so sometimes there can be big mistakes made if you're just looking at someone and deciding, I think you're a Fitz 3, but you might really be, because of your genetic heritage, because of that DNA, you may have, you've still got that DNA in you. And so there are a lot of areas, particularly in medical aesthetics with lasers, where the skin is going to react to that light-based energy much more aggressively. Same thing with chemical peels.
Right.
And the different, particular skin disorders or precautions that happen more to skin of color. They have a greater chance of having post-inflammatory hyperpigmentation, a greater chance of greater incidence of acne, keloid and keloid scarring, hypertrophic scarring, more common. And so I think people just don't have the education and have not known how to treat skin of color and end up having a problem.
Yeah. So what would you say are some of the biggest do's and don'ts when someone does have a client who has an ethnic background or skin of color or who is transgender? What are some of these do's and don'ts that you see so many estheticians in our industry maybe make those mistakes, and how can they avoid them?
I think people start out too aggressively. Well, first of all, it all starts with the consultation and really dialing in the consultation process and making sure that you're asking those questions rather than just assuming, finding out if someone does have ethnicity with darker skin tones, because that is going to influence the reaction. So starting with the consultation and finding out their genetic heritage, even if someone looks like they are a Fitz 1 or a 2, really dialing in there. And then moving in a more progressive, slower approach. Chemical peels, for example, because glycolic acid is the smallest molecule, it's going to penetrate the deepest. I would never start someone with skin of color with a glycolic peel. You're going to have to learn to condition their skin so that it can accept more aggressive treatments. But starting with an enzyme peel or enzyme exfoliation, for example, and if that does great, then the next time start with maybe lactic acid or a blend of lactic and and salicylic, or using malic or mandelic acid before you begin to move to something that's more aggressive.
What are some of the mistakes that you see people make, like as far as the results that a client will experience because someone did the wrong treatment for them? What are some of these? You could definitely tell somebody did a no-no on this skin. What are some of those symptoms of bad treatments on colored skin?
Well, definitely hyperpigmentation, more aggressive hyperpigmentation. I've seen people who have used an IPL, an intense pulse light device, on someone who has darker skin, and they end up having little stamping, marks, definitely grid marks, because the skin has hyperpigmented where they've had that treatment. I think working with people who have acne, their skin can become breaking down the skin barrier so that they end up having issues with dermatitis. They end up having kind of almost secondary skin infections because the skin barrier has broken down.
Yeah. And one thing, like you, I've been in the industry for over 20 years myself, and I've been in contact with many different schools and how they teach aesthetics. And some of the states have such short programs that they barely teach them the minimum. And then they go out into the real world, and now all of a sudden they come across all these unique situations that they need to really know how to address. So where can someone go to learn more advanced aesthetics? Where is a good curriculum that somebody can go and actually study, and what should they look for in those curriculums?
Well, I think, we developed, so because there was no curriculum out there, I took a task force of students and instructors, and we started with just sort of the bare basics of what are some important considerations, what are the differences or unique characteristics of different ethnicities, and we created our own curriculum, which we call Fearless Beauties, treating skin of color. And we have a book, we have an online course. And prior to COVID, we were traveling around doing presentations around the country, but treating Black skin of African descent, Asian skin, South Asian skin, Indigenous, Latinx, I say it wrong, Latinx skin, even Nordic skin, and then transgender skin. But there are other, besides Fearless Beauties, there are other people, experts out there that are able to provide that information. I know that Tosh Baker has started the network of multicultural spa and wellness professionals. They have educational resources for people who really want to learn and be able to become experts in their own profession on treating skin of color. I think that if you aren't, our country, for goodness sakes, our country is moving towards a multi-ethnic identity.
Yes.
And if you're not treating skin of color, you're losing out on a revenue source. But also recognizing that because our country is moving to a multi-ethnic identity, pretty soon you're going to have clients that are all going to have skin of color.
Yeah. And you know what really interests me also, Mary, and things that I observe actually, when people are doing their marketing material, building their websites, doing commercials or ads in magazines, and before we would see only white young people, and it's all Shutterstock, and they're all brushed and photoshopped to death. And now, like for example, we just helped one of our clients open up a brand new medical spa. It's called in Texas. It's called Bell Transformations. And when we did their websites and all their marketing material and their videos, We did it all with all the different ethnic groups, including LGBTQ and everybody, because they wanted to focus, and we wanted to help them focus on everybody, not just white young people.
Yes, I think demonstrating that representation, looking at your marketing material, your website, what is your message? Because I think that for a long time, skin of color has just been ignored. And I think that our country has really come to a realization where they want greater equity and equality and diversity and representation.
Yes, for sure. What do you think took our industry so long to actually get on that bandwagon and realize that this is needed? What do you think?
Well, I think a lot of beauty companies are run by middle-aged or older white men who just haven't got it. They didn't get it. And I think that now it's starting to change because the consumer is getting, I think, first of all, Rihanna coming out with Fenty Beauty was huge and kind of shook up the industry. And then I think things like Black Lives Matter and
just consumer demand, I would think. You started, yes, like you said earlier.
Consumer demand.
Yeah.
Looking at, people have, what is this, white grandma have to do with skin of color? Try us, why you?
Yeah. Well, I'm so glad.
I have 4 children.
Yeah, I'm so glad
my children have married people of color.
Yeah.
I have grandchildren of color.
Yeah.
Who's going to take care of their skin?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there's definitely a bigger demand. And like you mentioned earlier, I think people are leaving a lot of money on the table by not opening themselves up to more education so they can learn how to actually address the concerns that they have, how to perform the treatments, how to use the right products, and especially lasers, like you mentioned. I know you spent many years educating people on lasers. So let's talk a little bit about that, because people with color, skin color, that are darker, or brown people or ethnic people, as you mentioned, when you're utilizing lasers, you have to be very careful, right? So what are some of the do's and don'ts of maybe lasers with people of color or LBGT?
Well, I would say so skin of color, I would definitely, you want to pre-treat the skin with some kind of melanocyte inhibitor. Hydroquinone is, a little bit frowned on, but sometimes hydroquinone is what you need to get to condition that skin so that you don't have as strong of a concern about hyperpigmentation with a laser. So I would say, or some other tyrosinase inhibitor, but preconditioning the skin before the laser treatment for 2 or 3 weeks. And then when they have some type of hair removal or skin resurfacing, making sure that it's a 1064 ND-YAG. That is really the gold standard for treating skin of color. Some manufacturers will say that their device will treat skin of color, but I would be doing test patches just to be sure on that skin. And then for transgender skin, people who are transitioning are on a wide variety of hormones, and their skin is going to be more reactive. So you've got to be concerned about those reactions, and you need to really address at every appointment, how have your hormones changed? That's going to influence sebum production. It's going to influence hair growth, those kinds of things. And so just being aware that it's really, you're getting on a journey with your client. You're going in this together, and it's not going to be just a one and done quick fix. It is going to be kind of a journey where you're progressing to get your results.
And that's what I love. And part of the business model that we teach, Mary, is that you mentioned earlier the consultation process. And to me, that is also the most important thing. And what I love about the way we teach the consultations is we encourage everybody to create an entire customized program for your client. So it's exactly not one and done. It's a process that they need to go through to make sure that they're going to get the best results. But that's where our industry sometimes they cut themselves short, and the clients they operate under the a la carte mentality: come in, get one treatment, leave, and then pray they come back, which is terrible. So what we're trying to do for the industry, like you're educating them on the clinical side, we educate them on the business side and how important it is to truly customize these programs for their clients. And the other component I find missing, which I would love to hear your opinion about it, is the home care component of actually treating the skin, because everybody is like so focused on doing the treatments in the med spa or spa, and then they let them go empty-handed, and then they have no idea what skincare products are ideal for them. So do you have some tips on as to what would be a great professional skincare product that they can recommend to ethnic skin?
Well, I think there's so many great brands out there, but I think for sure you want your clients to be on, well, I say there's 5 steps to skincare, but you want them on a good cleanser and toner. You want them on, so the cleansing part, right? You want them on, if there has to be a correcting part, maybe they need some type of, some type of serum that's going to be anti-aging, or are they looking for something that is going to help with hyperpigmentation, or is it something that's going to help with acne? They need an exfoliation step. They need a nourishing step where they need some kind of moisturizer and hydrator, and then they need the protection with SPF. And I think one of the myths with skin of color is that they don't need sunscreen. They don't need sunscreen.
Right.
Well, they do need sunscreen.
Yes.
And that's evidence with the rise of skin cancer in the skin of color population, where sunscreen just has to be essential. And I think now I'm going to go a little bit back to the consultation is so important. It's the whole thing. It's like you got to get the consultation down, or the rest of what you're doing could be filled with mistakes, or could be just completely wrong because you're recommending the wrong even products for home care. Right. So that consultation, I like the consultation. I love the consultation. I love learning about my clients. Yeah. And I think most of the people coming in are coming into you initially because I think there's an event that's spurred them on to coming to see you. So maybe it's a milestone birthday. They're just turning 30 or 40 or 50, and suddenly they look in the mirror like, or it's a wedding, or an anniversary, a special anniversary, or something where you get to be a little part of this journey with them to help them find success with their skin, because it just transforms their whole presentation of their person. Absolutely. You get that, but I like to do the consultation, get to know them a little bit, find, what's the spark inside of them. And then I like to make recommendations for home skincare, get you started on some home skincare, and then have you come back in 2 or 3 weeks. And then let's get started on professional treatments, because that the majority of the improvements in their skin is going to be because they are doing a home care program. Yes. Taking pictures. We have a digital camera system that's going to show them down underneath their skin, their texture and pore size and fine lines and vascularity and sun damage, and then being able to, even in 2 weeks, they're on this home skincare regimen and look at the improvements that have already happened in your skin. And let's just continue on and create something, that's almost feels a little bit miraculous, these changes in their skin. Yeah.
Do a true transformation for them, for sure.
Yes.
Yeah. That's great information. I'm sure everybody is loving what you're having to say. I know you're involved with some other things that I mentioned in your intro this morning. And we talked about Spectrum Advanced Aesthetics. We talked about the fact that you are the founder of Cascade Aesthetics Alliance, and also the owner of Indie Aesthetics. So do you want to give us a little bit what each one of these companies actually do and how you help professionals in the industry with that?
Sure. Well, Spectrum Advanced Aesthetics is our aesthetic school, licensed in Oregon for both standard aesthetics and advanced aesthetics. In Oregon, it's a 2-tiered licensure. So you get your standard aesthetics license, and then if you want to move forward and work with lasers and other high energy devices, it's a 500-hour program. Most of our graduates go on and work in dermatology offices or plastic surgery offices and are successful. Cascade Aesthetic Alliance, I started because I realized in the Pacific Northwest, there was no sort of unifying body of estheticians, right? And so I just started it as an educational and networking resource. And prior to COVID, we would meet 3 times a year, just get together. Typically, it was great for a Sunday morning. We'd have mimosas and Bloody Marys and a little Sunday brunch, and then a speaker who would talk about a number of different topics, but, business success, somebody talking when CBD became legalized in Oregon, someone came and talked about CBD skincare so that people could have a better understanding about that. But just helping entrepreneurs, those solo entrepreneurs that are out there to find success, because it turns out to be more work than you think it's going to be, right? You think, my goodness, I'm going to get this beautiful treatment room that's going to look great, and I'm going to post my pictures on Instagram, and then voila, they sit there with an empty schedule. So just helping them and forming networks with each other, because women empower women, and having that sisterhood. And there's occasionally some guys in there too. So the family of aesthetics. That was just really important. And there's just like a great positive energy, and people just feel inspired to go back and do better. And then indie aesthetics really is just, that's also kind of an offshoot of Spectrum. So I want my instructors, the people who are educating the students here, I want them to stay active in the industry. I want them to have an active practice. And so indie aesthetics is for those instructors. It's kind of a benefit of working here is that you can have an independent practice, you can see your own clients, and you can continue to be involved in the industry, and not just someone who sits in a classroom and teaches and hasn't had their hands-on experience in years. So.
Don't you also have some kind of a sponsorship program?
We do have a podcast with Fearless Beauties.
Nice.
Fearless Beauties, we do a podcast. We've done 18 episodes. We're taking a little bit of a break through the summer, and then we'll start back up in the fall.
Nice. What's the name of the podcast? Is it Fearless Beauties?
It's Fearless Beauties.
Nice. That's great. Well, I love the fact that you're so involved in the industry, and that you're educating everyone and helping everyone in our industry to become better at what they do. I love the fact that you have the books and some manuals and ways to really, the curriculums that you mentioned. So if anybody is looking to improve their aesthetic skills, you definitely need to reach out to Mary Nielsen and have her walk you through the process, and make sure that you are armed with everything that you need to ensure your success and to develop your skills more and more. That's the thing about education, and as I mentioned, that's what I love about educating, not just in clinical like what you do, but also in the business side. So they are becoming more successful, and they're generating the income that they need to. Though they love what they do, you might as well make some money while you're doing it, right?
Well, absolutely. I we go into this. Estheticians have such caring. They're just very caring, heartfelt people, right? And they go into it with this big heart. But I think that, goodness sakes, you have to make money. I mean, I have a car payment and a house payment, and I don't think there's anything wrong with with making an income.
Yes,
You know,
for
doing
sure.
what you love.
Yes. Yes. So I want to give everybody a gift in your community because they'll be watching this, I'm sure. I have also a book like you. Actually, I'm publishing my 4th book soon. So I'm keeping up with you, Mary. So my latest book was How to Make Millions with Your Medical Spa. So it's ideal. Yeah, it's ideal for anyone who wants to really grow their business and become super successful. And to get a copy of it, you can go to InSPArationManagement.com and be able to download either an electronic version of it, or you can also request a hard copy. So I just wanted to give this as a gift to anybody who's watching this today, and so they can benefit. This way you can benefit from Mary's expertise in the clinical aspect, and then you can benefit from InSPAration management expertise from the business aspect. And voila, you could be super successful. Right, Mary?
Well, Dori, you have been around a long time, because I remember, you know, back pre-internet, right?
You're aging us now, Mary.
Pre-Wi-Fi, where it was like dial-up and took forever.
Yes.
You know, with our gateway computer with the cow logos
right.
on the box. But you were there, right? You were there.
Yeah.
And so what's your secret to your longevity?
Oh my goodness. You know, I do what I love also, because I'm very passionate about education and coming up with business models to help people succeed. And when I hear what people have accomplished once they implement our business models, it's the fuel that keeps me going. I'm sure just like you, the same reason. When you see people develop their skills and become better, it energizes you and it makes you want to do better and better. So that's what's kept me in it so long.
Yeah, no, I feel like I have been doing this, but every day I wake up and think, I get to come here. It doesn't feel like work.
Exactly.
I love it. I feel like I never get burned out. I feel like it's always, what's so great about aesthetics, it's always changing. There's new technology in skincare, new innovations in equipment, new, you know, adaptations of things. And and the people you get to work with, right? The people, you get connected with people that are just amazing. Yeah. And so I love this industry.
Nice. Good. I'm glad. Well, we can definitely see your passion. Where is a good place to send people to learn more about all the different programs? What website would you like to give them, or email address? What would you like to do?
They can reach out to, well, I will tell you, Mary@SpectrumLaserTraining.com.
Okay.
On Instagram, I'm called Your SD Godmother.
Oh, I love that.
I know. I started thinking about, what do I want to do? I really want to help people get their dreams, right? Yes. I want to help them achieve their dreams, their career dreams. Yeah. And so
very nice.
If I could give them even more than 3 wishes.
That's great.
But, Your SD Godmother, or they could look at fearlessbeauties.org.
Okay, great. Well, make sure you reach out to Mary. Thank you so much for being with us and taking the time and sharing your expertise. I loved what you had to say, and keep up the good work and keep contributing to the industry, because I'm sure people love what you do and we love what you do, and keep it up. We're so excited to have you be on the show today. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you so much, Dori.
I appreciate
it very much.
My pleasure. Thank you for watching Meet the Experts. If you are looking for ways to improve your professional career, go to SpectrumLaserTraining.com and see all the educational programs they offer to help you improve your career. And those of you who are watching Meet the Experts, if you like this episode, please share it, leave us comments below, and subscribe to the YouTube channel of InSPAration Management. There you will find all kinds of interviews to really help you with your career. And if you are an expert in your field, make sure to go to meettheexperts.com and you can apply to be on the Meet the Experts show. Thank you so much for being with us. Thank you again to Mary Nielsen and her expertise. And until we meet again, be well and be prosperous. Thank you for watching.